Brian Hyatt, Vice President of Sales at Oasis.
Awesome, Brian. Well, give me a cloud flyover of. I was on the website. And I normally don't do a bunch of research, but I did click on your website on this one because I'm at least going to get an idea of the product flow. And I don't do research. I want to kind of let people know and remind the audience because this is an organic conversation. You and I have never met, so there's two pieces that I want everybody to understand in this show is we're talking about adult beverages, but most importantly, we're talking about human connection and how to meet a stranger. So over the course of the next 50 minutes, you and I are going to get to know each other really well. We're going to be vulnerable with each other, and I have no questions on a screen. So it is just like you and I are sitting in the bar, just getting to know each other, man.
So,
Perfect. So yeah, tell us about Herbal Oasis and what it is you guys produce.
yeah, so at Oasis, we're committed to creating a high quality, natural, and low calorie option that enhances relaxation, mindfulness, social connection without compromising like personal well being. So it's one of those things, that this category, the THC beverage category, is talked a lot about an alternative to alcohol, or that's how people are using it as an alternative to drinking, or if it's 2 nights a week and alcohol the other 5. So, we're kind of meeting those consumers where they're at. And, that's why we, as it stands right now, we have a milligram kind of amount that reflects that, right? We have in the RTD side, we have 5, 10 milligrams. We have a 30 and a 50 milligram. I'm based in Middle Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. So Tennessee is going to roll into a 30 milligram cap. So that was one that we made specifically for Tennessee, but noticed that there were a lot of consumers that had sort of graduated from the 20 milligram, but weren't ready to ride the lightning, so to speak, and go from 20 to 50. So it's kind of just bridging the gap with the 30. And then for the consumers who cannot use THC, like my wife specifically, she's a optometrist at the VA. So we have a mushroom only blend, nootropics. It's basically, it's like an alpha brain, but, in a 12-ounce form. So yeah, we literally have that for every person that's out there. And then
I like that.
Yeah. And then we're in the middle of launching 2 750 milliliter spirit bottles. We have one that's completely unflavored, and then a citrus flavor, which will be nice if you just like Coke Zero and you don't want to taste the hemp. You can use the unflavored, and then also a couple of different shot lines. And our parent company is cbdMD, so they've been in the space since 2015. And obviously edibles, tinctures, and things like that. So it's really nice kind of being under the umbrella of a publicly funded company, sort of in a startup space, if you will.
Yeah, I was talking with the VP of sales for edibles.com, and it was very interesting talking about that similar thing where they're allowing them to sounds like, oh, well, as you guys, you get to really be an entrepreneur. You get to work within the resources while also kind of being creative and building out a brand from scratch from that.
100%.
When you, what states are you guys in currently with not e-commerce, but actually on the shelves in retail?
Yeah. So with Oasis, we're going to be in 6 markets, and it's primarily in the Southeast.
Okay. Very cool. What, for you, how long have you been in the hemp and functional beverage space?
Yeah. So I came into hemp in 2023. I've been with Oasis since 2025. And how I sort of discovered the category, I quit drinking alcohol back in 2021. And for a couple of years, I just sort of lost my social life. And that's why one of those things that I always want to say, I don't want to pigeonhole hemp beverages into the replacement of alcohol, because it's alcohol that's ultimately they're building the category with us, right? So I feel like we're just in a day and age where you have to be very clear on what you're saying because of context. So I'm saying for me, whenever you took the alcohol out, there was sort of this, I don't know, you're just kind of, you're not part of the vibe if you're just drinking like a non-alcoholic beer. And that's nothing against that. And maybe there are people who can enjoy that. For me, I wasn't part of the vibe, right? So I just kind of sort of reclused and did my own thing. And then whenever my wife and I were moving from San Antonio, Texas back to Tennessee in 2023 to get closer to home, I was at the time working for an Italian wine supplier. I had, taken them from 36 cases a month to over 2,000 a month, and gained 966 points of distribution. A lot of those were in HEB, and it was, we can get into it here in a little bit, but it was a lot of just, I did the tastings myself because there wasn't a budget in the beginning. And I would take that real recap from like a tasting that I would do, because I knew if I put it on LinkedIn with substance, someone from HEB would eventually be like, is this guy full of shit or not? And they would go be like, oh no, they actually put 12 cases through the register on Saturday the 11th. But so that job, I wasn't going to be able to transfer from San Antonio to Nashville. So I interviewed with probably 15 wine suppliers and had a strong resume, had a background with Republic National, and understood that suppliers are ultimately the ones responsible for building their brands, not distributors. And I, wouldn't even get a call back. Sometimes it would be like a no call, no show on the interview. And you're like, man, this is great for my confidence, right? This will be a good testimony in the end, because I just changed the trajectory of this wine company. And now I can't even get like a first call with the Jackson family. If we need to cut that family out, we can. But so I was really discouraged. And, I got on LinkedIn and I saw a post from, it was Flyers Cocktail Company. And so that was the first exposure I had to hemp beverages. We, in Texas, I would go to the dispensaries that we had in San Antonio that had hemp, and it like Mike Tyson's shorty or like a dog walker or something, like basically just a little loose rolled joint. And that was how I used cannabis. Right. And so I started looking at the position that they had. It was from Middle Tennessee. And that's how I just kind of found the category to begin with, just personally and professionally.
When so we had very similar tracks as far as how that is. It was a bridge for me for I tried numerous times to get sober, and it wasn't until hemp beverages kind of got to a place where they were drinkable, because it was there before recently they weren't.
It's a salad.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, it was the same with it's like with the non-alcoholic beers too. Like they were undrinkable for the long. Like the first couple of times, I was like, man, I can't get sober on no duels. You know what I mean? Like, and then Panic and Zero came out, and Athletic and Brewdog and all those guys. So when you got into the hemp space, did you quickly realize how similar everything was from the alcohol with universal skills and stuff?
So definitely from a skill set perspective, but I also noticed like there were a lot of people in that space who didn't come from a 3-tier background.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, admitted that, right? And they're like, we probably need to hire somebody from that field. Others, it's not saying that if you didn't come from like an alcohol beverage background that you'll just never be able to make it as a cannabis brand. But it's just one of those things that you saw like a lot of, I guess, just like untraditional approaches and things like that. And it was clearly a person who had never dealt with a buyer at these liquor stores. And like, some of these places, your appointment only, or it's you've waited a while for that appointment. And if I'm standing there, talking to that buyer, and you come in without any etiquette and like start just trying to pitch in front of me, like there were like THC suppliers that I would be like, 1 second, and I would like take them to the side and be like, hey, I've had this appointment for like a month. I'm really not trying to be an asshole, but like, if you ever come in, it seems like you're new to this. You ever come in and see something like that going on, introduce yourself or whatever, but please don't ever like come in and like, start trying to pitch your product in the middle of this, because it's probably not going to end well for you. There's a lack of courtesy in it, but there's also like the buyer hates stuff like
that. I started in the alcohol business in Philadelphia, and it was rough. That was rough. Because when I started out, I worked there when I was 19, but I wasn't allowed to sell or have a sales rep until I was 21. So I worked in the warehouse. I was driver, helper, break, and it was still licking envelopes to put mailers out and stuff like that too. So we weren't doing email PDFs at that time. But I remember the first couple of times that I had a veteran pull me aside when I interrupted him during a sales pitch, and they scared the shit out of me. And the one guy told me the best thing there. He was like, "Listen." He's like, don't ever fucking interrupt me again. And I'm like, okay, no problem, buddy. And he goes, listen, let me give you a tip. He goes, introduce yourself just like you just said. And he's like, just walk the aisle and look at everything. And he's like, there's 2 things you'll learn. Most of the time, you don't have time to do that. So you probably haven't done that yet. And he said, you'll get to learn what else is out there and what you're competing against before you talk to the guy. And he's like, second, And he's like, get ready. He told me what I'll never forget. He's like, get ready to take 30 phone calls to have what I just did. And he's like, you don't, and there's an exception. Like, you can still walk in and catch buyers. Like, I just spent 2 days this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, dropping in cold to independent places because I found that Saturdays and Sundays are a good way to jolt them. So like they don't expect sales reps to come in. So when you walk in on a Saturday afternoon and just drop some samples, I don't do any sales pitch. I just do the cold and warm, let's say, where I'm like, hey, I just want to drop some samples off. I'll give you a call next week. And like, that's as simple. That's all it is. And I walk out the door and they're like, what the hell just happened? Like, I don't even stay like to hear what they say. And then I'll get a text from them later. And they're like, hey, I was really busy, but I appreciate the efficiency. I'm like, no problem, man. I said it's a Saturday, Sunday. All I wanted to do was shake your hand, look you in the eye, and deliver value to you. And I'm going to walk away and let it simmer for a few days because I'm not thirsty. I'm not hungry. You know what I mean? Like, I am hungry. Let me rephrase that, but I'm not desperate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing for the buyers to see as well is for any new person, and I'll use it, we can use this as advice to the audience, any new person in this industry, because there's a lot of new sales reps in the hemp and functional beverage space, patience will make you more money than rushing.
Yeah, 100%. And that's with anything in life, right? Like, anything worth having is going to take time, hard work, failure, lots and lots of failure. And if you're going off the blitz scale model, you're going to break things, before they're broken. You're going to build the plane while it's still in the sky. And it's just like, you got to stack the days, good or bad. I mean, there's 1,000 gurus out there on YouTube that spill this gospel every day, but there doesn't have to be a 2-hour ritual to start sending emails or following up or coming up with a plan for the week, the day, the month, whatever it is, depending on your level. So if you're new to it, the best thing that I would say is, if you've never worked for a distributor, or even if you have, the success of this brand relies on you and your company. And here's where the context is coming from. So I go to work for, it's called United Spirits Incorporated. We sold Bellissimo, which is the brand I was talking about with the pods earlier. And I had all of these relationships. I left Republic National, South Texas, on good terms. But I saw in 2021, I saw the writing on the wall, and now we're in a part where what Reyes is acquiring them. So at that time, it was the Roman Empire, and now it's kind of the Byzantine about to be conquered by the Ottomans, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's,
yes,
that's what it feels like. You've got like that last pillar of Constantinople and Austin, Texas, trying to fight off the hordes, and here we are.
And we've been seeing it, and not even just to pick on them. Like, we've been seeing it, you and I, when we look at it, we've been seeing it in all kinds of regions. Like we just saw with I think it was Reyes and Colombia up in the Northwest. I mean, Colombia is a staple in that world. Yeah. And to see those types of things, and then see what's going on the eastern side, and then you see like Anheuser-Busch in the past 12 months has done a massive amount of generational legacy consolidation of like, straight up just like telling people you're done and you're consolidated and you're selling to this guy. They didn't even give I heard these, I'm not going to give names, but directly from multiple owners of generational, third, fourth generation distributors that got the phone call from Anheuser-Busch in the past 12 months. And they were just like, you're done. And, wow. and that is that's a scary world to live in now. It's not the world we years ago. It's a whole new world that has no predictability anymore.
100%. And that was the lesson for me. Whenever I left RNDC, I'm thinking like, it's not an established brand. It's not like I'm going to go work for Tito's or something like that, right? Or Constellations back when they were doing a lot of wine. It was, here's a startup. And my mentor who worked at RNDC over 20 years, and he's now over at Johnson Brothers in Texas, is a guy named Anthony Santiano. Shout out Anthony. Anthony was my area sales manager whenever I was at Republic National, and then he was my division manager once he got promoted. But after I left, he was the first person, I was just like, what would you do? And he was like, here's exactly what I would do. It was like, it's what you need to go like get in front of, you've got authorization in a chain, you have no distribution in it. You just have the right to sell at a store level. You already know where the stores are because you were a district sales manager at RNDC. You know which HEBs are the top ones. Go use those existing relationships. And he was like, instead of relying on an unknown tasting agency that you don't have a budget for, go do it yourself. Like, just go do the tastings yourself. And so that was the lesson for me, is like, even no matter how connected you are, if it's a startup brand, or even if it's, got a little bit of momentum, you as the supplier, let me say that one more time, you as the supplier, you're responsible for building the brand. And what will happen is, when you get enough momentum and all of a sudden you start having the attention of the distributor, like, that's when the layups, so to speak, will come. If they know they have a supplier that has the logistics and the dependability to have distribution in any sort of chain, guess whose product they're more likely to recommend when said chain presentations come up. And at the end of the day, you do the work, but they get to take the credit. So it was kind of like a teamwork thing. So
Exactly.
I say that just kind of, having fun, because there are great distributor partners out there and things like that. But just, if you're new, it's on you.
I love that phrase, because there's an old phrase from he was an old guy when I was younger. So I don't even know if he's still alive, but he used to be like, we're distributors. We distribute. And like, when because we, in the craft beer world, I had like 32 brands, and we did way more than other distributors when I was running it. And that's one of the reasons my tenure there was short, was because they wanted to get it back into the distribution business and get out of the marketing, localized platforming, and all that stuff. And it was a rude awakening, and that was 2017. And that was when craft beer started hitting its wall, and then everybody was really looking at the numbers and being like, okay, the fad's over. Like, you got to really work for these brands now. And that's when it was like, all right, let's focus and streamline on distribution. And I left, and I worked on behalf of brands to help them navigate that world, because I knew there was a void in people that actually understood on the brand side what it took to navigate wholesale effectively. So that's where my business has been since for the past 9 years now, as far as that goes, is advocating and strategy and market development for the brands. So when they go through, what do you think, like, when you go through and you're looking at everything, what is kind of the number one thing for a market when you guys are looking at it for your brand, and how your brand matches with the market? Because one thing I think, and this is not to speak ill of new brands, but a lot of times everybody's really focused on how many states they have. And I don't think a lot of people, when you really pull the onion back, it's a mile wide and an inch deep. So do you guys strategically look at, like, right product, right account, right territory, or is it really, let's get these numbers going in the Southeast? And it's okay if it is. I just wanted to kind of know.
Yeah. My biggest thing is deep, not wide.
Yep.
You want the $50,000 purchase order from a state that's 700 miles away from you. Sure. But do you have the resources to put together a person that's in the market, tasting support, some sort of QD where, that's one thing that not every distributor is going to split any deals with you 50-50, or maybe it's 75-25. It may just be all you. So you got to look, and you really need to see, like, okay, I know I just said it's on the supplier to build the brand. Who's the right distribution partner that I can know that the orders are going to get keyed in, at least, right? Like,
and that's a big thing.
It's huge, because you can send a recap email all you want, but it's also on you to start looking at that. I mean, if you're in sales anyways, you should be looking at your data. That's the first thing I do at 4:30 when I wake up every morning, is I go look at the data. And some of it, like, VIP won't update till 7 a lot of the times, but some of the other, like, Encompass platforms, that's same day with distributors, that's what I look at. And that's when you can follow up. And so I would say just, and pick what's near you in a car, or where you have someone. So, like, if you're in New Jersey and you're trying to activate Kansas, I mean, if you don't have the money to put someone in Kansas, and if you don't have in writing with the distributor that you're going to hit a certain amount of volume, maybe put that state on pause. And I'm saying Kansas because it's one of those, like, if you lived in Kansas, you wouldn't do the same for, Delaware or Connecticut or whatever. So it's just one of those, like, geographically it makes sense. And another thing to think about from, like, if you're a startup and don't have all the funding in the world. It's like, if some of these states, like if one thing happens in 6 states, you're financially responsible. Like, let's just say Florida decides they want to go from 2 servings to 1. Well, if you have like a digital print can, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to redo those. But if you have stickers, you're gonna have to expedite the stickers, expedite the shipping, pay the distributor to put the stickers on there, whatever it is. So that's another thing to consider too. It's like awesome because you want to show people like, look at all this growth we're doing, but then you lift up the hood and you're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be just go deep in a few states, the right partners, and, don't be afraid to say no to a deal. So hemp was well established in Tennessee when I moved here back in 2023. And, they've been a great state as far as putting in legislation on the beverage side. I know that there's things going on with flour that it's going away July 1, but as we all know, it could change 5 times before that. So
Yeah.
I mean, anything is possible, or there could be 9 proposals that happen between now and then. So that's just another thing to consider as well, is just like, you have to have the funding to be ready to cover, if there is a change, because that's the worst thing that can happen to you with your image with a distributor, is if you're not able to get the labels changed out right away and they're just sitting on product for 2 months. Like, so that's just one of the other things to consider.
Yeah. And I think that right now there's a lack of people that you nailed it on the head, though. It's like, it's not necessarily alcohol experience as much as it is chain flow experience, or not chain flow, supply chain flow and distribution. Because the other thing is, a lot of times it's like, the cycles of distribution, where if you got in and you overextended yourself and you absolutely need the depletion out of that warehouse in order to get that reorder, because you need that money. We just talked about that 70,000 or whatever it is you got. That understanding depletion, because selling it to a distributor isn't selling it. I used to have to describe this to breweries all the time. We're like, but I sold you all this and you didn't move it. It's like, yeah, if it's in my warehouse, it's just an antique mall. Like, until you get it to that shelf, that's another tier of sales. You sold it to me, now you need to sell it to them. And then the next part is, you have to build your brand awareness in the consumer base to then get it off that shelf, so we can then circle back and do the whole game again. And then the other thing is advice to everybody as well, is something that, since we're talking about distribution, I haven't mentioned this to a lot of people, is to remember that, your job is to get that product off the shelf too. And I think we do a lot of celebrating right now, where it's like, we got into all these stores. And like you just said, if you're not, I'm 17 years of owning this business. I'm still doing tastings. Yeah. And I do those tastings I'm at the point now where I'm not proving myself. I actually want to experience that conversation with those consumers when they're trying that product, because that is such vital information to kick back up the chain for tweaking strategy and tweaking perception of the brand and stuff like that. So while people might think like, that 2-hour tasting on a Friday from 4 to 6, that's a pain in the ass because you worked all week and you might have been up since 6 working. But that information, if you utilize those tastings the right way and ask the right questions, it is invaluable information.
Yeah. And then from there, you can find the right tasting agency too. Like there's a lot of great partners, that are out there. And then, that's one of those things. That's another piece of follow-up that you need to stay on top of too, is your tastings. Because there could have been like a no-call, no-show. And if like you're not going and checking some sort of platform to see that, this person was there and they tasted this many people, or, or you're getting a call from the buyer that's like nobody came, or the person was on their phone the whole time. So for me, like, where I had to basically build and scale my own tasting agency, and that was in the form of, I just hired like independent contractors on the wine side. And what I would do is, so at the time I was living in Boerne, Texas, so like where Tim Duncan and George Strait live, just north San Antonio. So at the time I was living there, but I would drive to like when the first HEB like opened up in Frisco, Texas. I drove up there and I had booked this like a month in advance. I did 3 6-hour tastings in a row. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and each day I had an ambassador in there with me. And the first day they listened to me, like they observed me. And by the end of that 3-hour period, that individual, they knew what to say, they knew how to handle any sort of objections they may get, and they also know you're not going to win every battle. So some people just, maybe they don't like the taste, maybe like an effervescent wine from Italy's not their jam, and that's cool too. It's how you doing, keep it moving type of thing. So I think if you are going to invest in tasting agencies, like a thing that helped is just like I filmed the video, and it was literally in my office set up like a mock tasting table, and I literally told them like the pitch that I wanted every time, like say this to like this interest gaining statement just to get to the person at the table, and pour the products in this order, because that way the ambassador kind of has the control of the situation. If I have like, there's a lot of THC sodas out there, like if there are 3 sitting there and you're like, what do you like to drink? You're greatly increasing the length of that conversation, and most of it won't be conducive to selling the product that's there. They're going to be like, I was at a party in 1978 and got really drunk. It was a red wine. Do you know what it was? And you're like, what? How the hell did we get here? So it's just like, with Flyers, when I worked for Flyers, like we had we wanted to pour, let's say like the old fashioned, the margarita, the spritz, or whatever it was, or with us go from like the berry to the mango to like the tropic. It's one of those things like you're like, hey, I've got 3 of these things here. I'm going to pour this one for you first, and then we're going to go down the line here. And at the end, tell me which one's your favorite. And you always had the price at the table, right? Because it made it simple for them. And that converted a lot of customers that way. So if you can just do like a 6 to 8 minute video and don't get into the weeds, because that can be a thing too. It's like, yes, be ready for compliance questions and things like that. And the somehow like the urban legends around that Delta stuff, because all of it, if you're getting high off of it, our friend is in there. Yes. I mean, am I wrong there? So, but it's one of those, you don't want to be like combative, but you do want to like, Bill that's there trying to, use some THC, and he's like, I don't do the CB stuff. And you're like, okay, what are you talking about?
I love that. I love that we're talking about tastings. I haven't talked about tasting events with anybody on this show, so this is valuable information for the audience. And I'll give one little tip too before I transition is what I started doing recently was realizing that it's over Scumageddon for everything in adult beverages. Yeah. And you got to remember that when that consumer has locked into your product at your table, if it's far, like where it is on the shelf, and it's not something that you can point to and have them walk directly to it, I always ask the buyer or the manager, whoever's there, if I can just temporarily take a 4-pack of each off the shelf and have it on the table so that I can give it to them in the spot if they want to go get it. And I can point out where it is and tell them where it is, but I don't trust, and it's not against the consumer, but it's the amount of distractions that exist in the aisle that like if you're letting them depart and they had a great experience, make it so easy that they can grab the 4-pack on the table. Like,
like that's always kept like the retailer loves when you put things through their register.
If you tell them your intention, they'll let you have it on the table. Yeah.
So, and that would be what I would do when I would walk into a tasting like that, is I would be like, where's the back stock at? Because I'm going to sell that out and I want to be able to keep the shelf full. Yep. And yeah, that's to your point about consumers being distracted. They're going to be like, yeah, it's over on aisle 17. Well, they just passed like a Jameson end cap, and then I think they saw Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart have a wine. All right, so we're just here. I know they've been around for a while, but there's so many shiny objects between point A and point B that it's more like a human thing, right? Like we're gonna see something else and grab it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, no bash on consumers. I'm the same way. I'm autistic, ADHD, the whole thing, diagnosed, and I can admit that you send me from aisle 1 to aisle 17, I'm probably gonna have $200 worth of stuff in my cart I didn't need from between on the way there, and I may have forgotten about you because I had a list in my hand as well that I was trying to activate, and my kid was calling me from home, or a million things can go wrong. So yeah, we'll hop off the tasting, but it's one of those things that for everybody, if you own a brand in the space today and you have not stood at a folding table for a couple hours and interacted directly with consumers, you are missing an opportunity of the most expensive time that you would pay for a consultant with just talking to consumers. And also, I think the number one thing is actually heading up the negative part. And that's what I think a lot of times people don't want to go, because they don't want to deal with that negative part where it is Jim, he's 76 years old, and he's makes some loud comment and it makes it uncomfortable for everybody else in line. but that's part of what it is we're trying to do. That's part of our job, is to educate, situationally manage that, and either help them understand and bring them into the industry, or help them just understand the industry so they don't repeat whatever myth they just set out and perpetuated, you know?
A lot of Facebook doctors out there.
That's, oh my God, the keyboard crusaders are in full force all the time. So what what got you into the alcohol industry period? Like, when did you jump into the wine, and what were you doing prior to the wine?
Yeah, so I worked so many jobs, and we'll take a detour, but we'll get to where we want.
That's okay. Go as deep as you want. Yeah.
For context, I went to East Tennessee State University in 2006. I was a pre-nursing major at the time. Got a job at the Johnson City Medical Center, and just for some realistic expectations of what it would look like. And I quickly decided, I'm so grateful for the people that have this profession. I don't think it's something that I can do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And that was prompted by like a schoolmate of mine, like having her family identify her after a car accident. And I was just kind of, that for me at like 20, I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I already know it. So I dropped out of college. In the very next year, I actually enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I served in the infantry from 2009 to 2015, which we are 40 minutes into the conversation, and I'm contractually obligated to say I'm a Marine, just like a vegan or a CrossFitter, right? You need to bring it up in a conversation. So as far as like the primary like lesson that you take from military service, especially as a grunt, is really you can just sort of adapt to any situation that you're presented with, and maybe things that may have been a mountain before are sort of a molehill now. You're like, it's Monday. You know what? That's what that is. Let's keep going. So I did that, and I worked a marketing job for a telecommunications company called CenturyLink. I did their in-house marketing, and then I interviewed with Republic National in like February of 2015 and did the realistic job preview. Everything's a go. And I heard nothing for 6 months. And actually the questions they asked me 6 months later, whenever I met them again for an interview, were the same ones from. And so I said,
you're going to put in notice, like just 3 questions,
Well, like their like RNDC's like method on like how they would ask things. I was like, well, these are the same questions you guys asked me back in February. Is this my first or second interview? And they were like, we thought this was your first. So it was just, and like the wires got crossed, right? Yeah. So, but I found RNDC through a guy. I was working, my wife was in optometry school 2013 to 2017. And I was working a full-time job and coaching at a CrossFit gym called CrossFit Metal. And so basically working 7 days a week, team no days off, not much has changed, right? Like it's still, but yeah, I got introduced, got the interview that way and sort of went from there. So got in with Republic National in September of 2015. And for those of you that have worked there, they had what's called the sales assistant, and you were a workhorse. You don't have a route. You're covering vacation coverage. If somebody calls out, you're doing that. If they're
when I was 21, that's what I was doing.
Yeah. So you're keeping the roads hot. You're yeah, it's just every down back. But I did that for a few months, and then everything that I did with them was on the retail wine side. So I had 3 different sales routes with them, and then I became the what's called a specialist, and that was for Constellation's wine portfolio. So it was one of those, like I was out selling the products and supporting the sales team, and from there I was a district sales manager for the HEB team. And if you've never heard of HEB, look them up. HEB is a magical grocery store in Texas, and I think maybe a few locations in Mexico, but they have, it's just beautiful. So if you've never heard of HEB, if you're ever in Texas, like just walk into one, you'll get it. So I had a team of 8, and it was actually during the pandemic. So, you've never seen retail spikes like you've seen 2020 to 2021. And back then the rules hadn't been written from a HR perspective at RNDC. You could just say a chew and you were off for 10 days, no questions asked.
Yep.
So to circle back on the school thing, I went back to school in 2020 with transferring 12 credit hours. So nothing, right? Like I was starting from scratch. So I ran a team of 8 through the pandemic, and you would have to run somebody's route if they were sick or whatever it was. And basically my team of 8 was down to like 2. It was like Christmas Eve of 2020. So there's like a LinkedIn photo from 6 years ago where I tagged all these people. Like all these people showed up, and I felt like so loved and supported, because it was just like managers from other teams, specialists, and like on-premise folks like came to HEB over in Alamo Heights and like helped me throw this massive order, because HEB will order 700 cases of wine on the week of Christmas Eve in some spots. So
they don't honor blackout dates at all.
No, they don't. So it was that, that was kind of my time at RNDC. And for context, like South Texas, that's where ownership lived. So when I first started, it was very militaristic. You had to show up to the office with a tie on, like even if you were grabbing a will call or dropping off an invoice. It low-key felt like some of the Marine Corps, like where somebody would walk on and like they'll walk up and try to lock you on and be like, tuck your shirt under. So like they weren't as aggressive, of course, but it was like that. But the training there, because you had a lot of the Gallo trained people that had kind of hung around from before. And if you've ever seen Gallo's training manual, it's, I had an old copy, and like it starts off like quoting some Greek philosopher at the beginning, and I was like, all right, this is going to be good. But they took training and development like really serious. Yeah. And that's the mentor that I spoke about earlier. Like that was his thing. Whenever he was like, when you're doing this with your people, you need to coach and develop them, because your job, you're wanting to go different places and you want them to follow you, and you want to know that it's in a better spot than it was before. Because what can happen, and what did happen at larger distributors, is you have people that were fast tracked for whatever reason, for an agenda or a corporate program or
nepotism, you can say it.
Yeah, okay, nepotism. But here's what I'll say about it. And it doesn't matter if you're the largest distributor in the country or the smallest. Does it make sense to have someone instructing how to climb a mountain if they never touched the rock face? Like if they took a helicopter to the top of this motherfucker, do they need to be telling someone how to put the carabiner in and go up a vertical, and they can't? That's the answer. And what happens when they can't instruct the people beneath them? They cocoon. So you can't find them with a search warrant, because they're so insecure about their abilities to coach and develop people, because they were at a short stay at a certain position. They were there until the limit that HR said they could go on to their next role or whatever it was. So think about that when, if you're a startup cannabis company, or if you're about to acquire a cannabis company, whatever it is, really vet the person that you're talking to, because just because they came from a large distributor doesn't mean they know what the hell they're talking about. There's a good possibility that they showed up when 98% of the work was completed and put their name on top of it for the LinkedIn post. So just make sure you know what you're getting. And that's why I love Oasis, honestly, is because you have people from the cannabis background, you've got people from alcohol, and then there's some of the other folks that came from tobacco. So you've got 3 heavily regulated industries. You've got all that insight coming in, and that's where we can kind of share that knowledge together, and as we're planning our months and our years out.
That's really cool. You like that you guys have all that. That's actually really cool that you guys have that diverse perspective on that. That's exciting to see in this industry. Like I think a lot more people, the humility is starting to come out now. And I think we're seeing that. Like I just saw today on Marijuana Movement that Wine and Spirits of America, and I was on a call with one of the national trade associations, and finally seeing Wine and Spirits of America on these calls. I was like, thank God. Because I've been on these calls trying to speak in my mind, and it's not going anywhere. Everybody's like, business as usual. I'm like, there's no fucking business as usual. You got a band coming in a couple months. It is grind it and get people to know what's going on. And I'm there preaching from the choir on an island by myself. and everybody else is just like business as usual. And it wasn't until the Wine and Spirits of America came in and they're like, fuck that business as usual. You guys got to fight for your life right now. And we got to dig in for the next 90 to 120 days.
Yeah. And
then you're seeing now that they're doing that. That was the article this morning they're calling Congress, Wine and Spirits of America on behalf of the hemp industry is pressuring Congress as we speak to get to and ostracizing them publicly for delaying the extension of the ban and or making a decision. And that's the thing that they needed to hear too, because those guys have the money, they have the resources, and they have the leverage to get people to pay attention.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like if you're newer, it doesn't matter how old you are, if you are new to cannabis or using cannabis, if you want to take like a trip down memory lane, in 2008, if you wanted to get high, you had to go to someone's house or meet someone in a parking lot, or have a stranger come sit in your house and use the product that you purchased from them and stay 3 hours too long.
And watch horrible movies and listen to the dumbest stories ever.
It would be like having DoorDash come like eat your food with you and you have to tip them. So
you know what's funny is when you brought that up, and I haven't thought about this in a long time, but did you ever and I'm openly I was a cannabis user back then too. Did you feel bad for that guy? Because you were like, this is the only social, the reason he locks you in or she locks you into watching that movie and sitting there for 3 hours, because that's their happy hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, I used to feel so bad for those guys and girls doing that stuff.
Yeah, those people I did. If there was an AK-47 next to the front door when I walked in, I was like, I think there's more going on here than plants.
I've been in a couple of those before.
I need to leave.
You take me back to a double wide and put Super Troopers on. I'm holding my wallet the whole time.
So I guess if there's a message out there for people who are shaping this legislation, the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yes.
More people now, I would argue, it's I submit to you. I would say more people now have a taste for cannabis than they did 20 years ago, because it has become more normalized.
Yeah.
You have, think about veterans or anybody else that uses it for pain management, not from a crutch perspective, but from a quality of life perspective.
Yeah.
It's not it's the cannabis users aren't what you thought they were, it's so, and you're going to give that market back up to people who you don't want to have it, who aren't collecting taxes or paying them, quite frankly. So the ball is in your court, and that's, make it make sense, right? Don't doing a 0.4 milligram cap on a drink is still going to push people to the black market if that's all that's available. Or if you're in Nashville, you're going to drive to Metropolis or whatever it is in Southern Illinois, and you're going to just Smokey and the Bandit, Sally Fields style, just pack the truck and bring it back to Tennessee because you enjoy using the stuff, not because you're trying to run a business on this side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're if you want, we can go back to running moonshine. My family did that in Mid-Atlantic, all along the Maryland line, and we can do it again. You know what I mean? No big deal.
100%.
I want to kind of in wrapping up this one, I want to let you know I want to have you back for a topical thing, but I actually want to have you back for a veterans conversation. So I have another gentleman that has a company called Crafted, and so they do in the spirits world, and then they have a nonprofit they partner with called Whiskey Valor Foundation, and they do fundraising for basically no DUIs in veterans. And so it's a program where if a veteran's there, blah blah blah, he can use that to get his Uber and things like that. But I want to specifically talk when we do come back in another roundtable about the veterans and the hemp industry, because I think it's extremely important for people to realize. And I'm not a veteran, but I have a lot of veterans in my family and things like that. And one of the things is I do spend a lot of time in bars and VFWs and moose lodges. So I've actually sat with them and drank with them and listened to the testimony. And one of the things I think that people don't realize is, I have the same life experience in the sense of trying to get out of prescription drugs. My addiction was alcohol. And then later on in life, I had a doctor that was very pill happy, and that spiraled me into a combo of pills and that. I don't take any of that stuff anymore. And it was because my therapist introduced me to hemp beverages and a different way to look at hemp. Not to look at hemp like when I was in my 20s, ripping bongs and things like that, but actually look at hemp as a medicine and looking at what it can do. And I think there's a couple things too that, the amount of veterans that I've met that are drinking hemp beverages and have kicked the prescription drugs and kicked the other things, it's crucial. And I think it's a section of the industry we don't talk about enough, because we talk about the soccer moms and things like that. And it's like, great, that's awesome. They'll drive the business. But there are, I also, like I said, during COVID, I found out, for example, like the VA in my state of Pennsylvania didn't have access to N95 masks. So I went around calling every manufacturer in the country and ended up doing deals with multiple states because the VAs were underserved with N95s. Like that's what I care about when it comes down to that. And I think that there's so much that we don't pay attention to that also lawmakers don't understand. And when I sat in DC and told these stories about veterans that have given me these stories to give as testimony, they were taken back, because I think that they still think of this as a stoner industry. They don't think of this as a Marine that just wants to get through his day, and this is going to help him go to sleep at night. And
Yeah.
this is or it's going to help him get through that 2 to 3 p.m. where that's where the anxiety hits, when he's really tired. And this is something that could give a little sativa step up and catch him through that tired time where he would slide back into his memories and then ruminate on things. And I think that this product, as opposed to alcohol, and I'm not speaking ill of alcohol, but this is a reality that alcohol is sort of an escape and the hemp beverages are sort of a presence. And the more that we can help people to be present and work, that's when you really work through and heal. You're not masking anything. You're not wearing a mask. You're not numbing yourself. You're being present in your feelings and you're being present in your emotions. And I think that I want people to understand how this thing is more than just having fun on a soccer field, watching your kids' game and stuff.
Yeah, and it's also important. I don't hear the conversation as much, and I can be cynical when it comes to LinkedIn, because there's great information on there. I know, like I think is it Diana Eberlein?
Yep. She puts great stuff in.
Yeah. Like I have a lot of other people outside of Diana Michelle muted, because I want to kind of wade through the bullshit. Not to say if you're out there posting it's bullshit, but I just don't want the two of them thinking that they have a stalker. That's like, Brian, I viewed your profile 9 times last month, but it's like, I need to see what the fuck's going on. So
I think it's definitely you and I see you on LinkedIn as well, liking stuff. Like you and I are both on there, and we walk that line where it's like, I want to show them support, but I don't want to be a stalker as well.
Yeah. So I think if somebody is saying this already, thank you. I know this all rolls up into the conversation towards November, but make no mistake about it. The things that we're talking about with prescription drugs, with alcohol, I'll say prescription drugs as like with Adderall, Vyvanse, with painkillers, with food, with fucking fitness, anything can be abused and overused. So I just want, people just need to know that, it's start low and work your way into it. So if you're a veteran who's curious about it and you're not in a position where you have to do a urinalysis at work because it will show up on a test, like start low and go from there. And know that most of the edibles are going to last a few hours, right? And the beverages, most of them nowadays are like formulated to be processed like your body would process alcohol. So it's, if you had the beer or the 10 milligram or 20 milligram drink, it's sort of in and out in an hour and a half, right? Like unless you continue drinking. And that there's also beverages specifically, there's a lot, atmosphere plays a lot in it. Like when I went a trip with Winebow to Spain, actually just before the shutdown in 2020. So got to go on this badass wine trip all over Spain. Like we got to see Messi score a goal in person.
Nice.
But it was like, you drink that wine when there's 1,000-year-old like olive tree and there's mountains and you're at the top and like you're just looking down on everything. The wine will never taste the same as it did right there, but it will always just incite the feeling that you had, and you'll always have that memory, right? And I think so it's just one of those things like THC, if you're doing it as a nightcap, like it could act like that glass of bourbon that you were having. But if you're watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the greatest franchises in the NFL, you're going to have there's a social vibe to it, right? Like you're kind of into it. So look at that piece like alcohol, but also know, like alcohol and like everything else, there's such thing as too much. And that's the thing is, like, come November, I'm sure we'll see legislation, but come 5 Novembers from now, I'm sure we'll see amendments. So like V1 isn't always the V that's around forever, right? So it'll be really cool to see look at it like right now of all the startups, look at this as Normandy Beach. You basically assaulted the front, you pushed the other armored back, and now Gallo family and Pernod are actually going to walk on top of your of your effort because they have the money and the research and it's done, and they're just going to walk right to the front of the line and know that's who you're going to be competing against, right? So that's the cool thing about, I'm excited, like, you know, what nothing keeps me up at night. I sleep well. It's not like, where's the industry going to be in 6 months? I stop looking at my phone and screens at 8 and I'm asleep every night at 9 because we're up at 4:30. Yep. So I'm not looking at November and saying, shit, like, what am I going to do in 5 months? Like, I've got to go get another job or go back into alcohol. I already know, like, sensible legislation's happening. And what I'm really looking forward to, which is the fun part, at least it was in wine, is like when the great houses of war, or we go to war with each other, right? Like it's right now we are pushing towards a common goal. Yeah. And if you were on the HBA call, I was working the field in St. Pete and Tampa last week, but I was told like the VP of compliance or something like that from Total Wine was talking about how valuable the 750 format's been, specifically 10 milligrams per serving, and how that they would work to hit that. Like that's what I'm talking about. We're all working towards that right now. Mm-hmm. But in a year, it's going to be all out war and it's going to be fun, right? Like we'll be able to like market and advertise against each other like Coke and Pepsi would, and we'll all hate each other in 6 years, but we'll know where we came from.
Somebody the other one of the episodes said exactly that, is like, I think it was Chris Fonte said, like, I look forward to a year from now when we can start competing. Like he was just like, I can't wait.
Unleash the dogs of war.
And I'm the same way. Like, I'm rough around the edges and I'm all about this kumbaya right now. But it's like, I look forward, because everybody wins when there's competition. And when it's done right, the consumer wins, the retailer wins, and the brands win, because it causes us to constantly not be like, right now, we're stunned in a paralysis in certain ways. Because there's hours sometimes in the week where I get like that, where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, should I keep doing this? Like, what if this does fail? Like, did I just waste the last 3 years, 4 or 5, 6 years of my life? But then at the end of the day, though, I go with reality and I stay grounded. And I'm like, we dealt with this with craft beer, and we dealt with this, and we know what to do. So I will wrap up this. Let's let anybody, as far as like how to reach you and how to check out your brands, give out your social tags, your website, and everything like that.
Yeah, so we're try.oasis on Instagram. I think that's the best way to find us. And also we do B2B air goods. So if you're on air goods already, you can look us up. If we're not in a state that carries us already, and then it's just herbaloasis.com. We call ourselves Oasis because so many people were just doing it naturally. Like, obviously that's an amazing band and we will be your Wonderwall, but just people by default have been calling us Oasis. But yeah, it's herbaloasis.com or try.oasis.
I said maybe. I was just, I have another show called The Leaders Arena, and I occasionally bring old friends that I haven't talked to in a long time on that show. Yeah. And I actually brought a person who was a professional singer, and we brought up the story of in high school when we sang Wonderwall on a talent show together. Yeah. So that was like 3 weeks ago, and I haven't thought about Oasis since then. So I really appreciate you putting back in my head there for the rest of the day.
Well, it's appropriate for the category, because where were you when we were getting high? You know.
Nice. Brian, this was so much fun. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I want to also, like, publicly, I want to say thank you for having the balls to come on with no script and no agenda. There is no screen in front of me with questions. This is an organic conversation, and I want everybody to understand, Brian and I never shaken hands. We've never shared a drink together. We've never had a cup of coffee. It is one of these things that I want people to understand, that it's not scary to meet new people. And this world is a beautifully destructive place. And when you're out there walking in the street, look people in the eye, put your phone away, and actually give a shit about what they say. And I'm sure I went sideways there for a second here, so I'll come back over. Yeah, I use my phone, and every once in a while I get a call and it throws me sideways. So I'll re-end there is when you're at the gas station filling up your coffee, look to the person next to you and actually give a shit and ask them how they're doing and really listen. Because I think a lot of times, and especially with you, and we're talking about the veteran community, people are lonely, and we think that we're all, if we have a good home life, we just assume everybody does. And 2 minutes, 3 minutes of just actually being engaged in a stranger's life could change their life, or at least their day or their week. So it's these little moments, like we talked about earlier, with stack those wins. stack those little moments and put some positivity out there. And Brian, thank you for taking the step and hopping on here today and starting that off.
It's my pleasure. And you've been listening to this now for 62 minutes. Please get off your fucking phone. The algorithm's trapped you. Leave. Go outside. The sun's shining here. Have a great day.
Exactly. Get out there and touch some damn grass.
That's it.
Hey, Brian, you enjoy the rest of your day, man. I'll be in touch with some other offline stuff for you.
Sounds good. Have a good day.
See you, buddy.
See you.